left by the previous tenants, hippies, degenerates, or both. But when he bent down and brushed the dirt aside with a calloused hand, he saw the edge of something that shimmered, not in the way normal things shimmer. No, this glimmer cut through dimensions like a blade through silk. His heart stuttered, his breath caught, and in that instant the Florida heat disappeared. So did the garden, and the hoe, and the too damp air, and the two naked demoness currently singing something obscene in the outdoor shower. Everything melted into white, then gold, and then he was standing, not in Citra, not even close. The cursed city rose up before him like a hallucination someone had tried to bribe God with. Everything was gold, not just golden, but unnaturally, offensively gold. Glowing walls, glinting towers, arches shaped like goddess thighs, fountains of liquid amber bubbling with lazy menace. The air stank of perfume and desperation. Banners flapped in a wind that wasn't blowing. Flame-eyed statues guarded the gates, each one mid-victory, crushing skulls, skewering beasts, drinking blood like it was bottom-shelf Pinot. Above it all loomed a palace of absurd proportions, pillars carved into leering nymphs, staircases that curled like tongues, domes that pulsed like beating hearts. Happy knew this place. He'd been here before. He hated it. It wasn't just that the city was evil, it was that it knew it was evil and wanted you to feel bad for judging it. He rolled his shoulders, felt the shift of muscle over something older than bone. Satyadharma stood where Happy had been, 9 feet tall, blue-green wings folded behind his back like a guilt he hadn't confessed, hair like flame-washed gold, tattoos pulsing faintly under celestial skin. His armor was dream stuff and regret. His sword, well, his song, really, was still humming somewhere behind his ribs. He wasn't sure why the masters had sent him here again, but he never asked any more. The city gate creaked open as he approached, as if the place was expecting him. It usually was. Inside, the streets pulsed with wealth and rot, markets overflowing with too perfect fruit, courtesans in translucent robes leaning from balconies, priests chanting in dead tongues while sacrificing creatures that looked far too intelligent for comfort. Everything beautiful, everything wrong. A few city dwellers saw him and gasped. Others bowed. One woman fainted dramatically onto a silk pillow and was promptly ignored by everyone, including her pet panther. Satyadharma didn't flinch. He'd done this dance before. And then he felt it. The shift in the air, the tension in the golden walls. The beast was coming. It started as a tremor. Then a sound, low, guttural, metallic. The earth cracked. The gate behind him slammed shut. And from the palace steps, the demon prince emerged. He was bigger this time, maybe 12 stories tall, skin like obsidian sludge, eyes glowing red with self-importance. He wore rings on fingers the size of trees and dragged a cleaver-shaped sword behind him that screeched against the stone like a bad idea being justified. His mouth curled into a grin that spoke several dialects of malevolent sarcasm. "Well, well, well," the beast said. "They sent you again." Satyadharma didn't answer. He just summoned his bow. He called it Purandara, the smasher of the damned. Not because he wanted to sound cool. That's just what it did. The bow shimmered into his hands, already strung with a glowing missile of condensed mantra and wrath. He drew. He released. The arrow tore across the plaza and took the demon's head clean off. The head flew. The body stumbled. Happy, Satyadharma lowered the bow and waited for the other shoe to grow legs and chase him. And sure enough, the prince's head split open mid-air. From inside stepped a new body, smaller but meaner, human-shaped but only in the way a wolf in a tailored suit might be considered business casual. "You again," he growled. "Me again," Happy replied flatly. They fought. Of course they fought. Blades clashed. Curses were shouted. Satyadharma beheaded him 5 times, which seemed excessive until it still didn't work. The bastard regenerated like bad opinions on the internet. Eventually, Happy had enough. He shape-shifted into a tiger, ripped the guy open, and chomped down on his throat like a man who just finished hoeing weeds and wasn't in the mood for nonsense. It worked. Sort of. The demon died. Again. Then his body exploded into a cyclone, a living, howling tornado of vengeance and loose metaphors. It screamed in 50 voices and started tearing the city apart just for fun. Satyadharma stood his ground. He could have summoned a mountain, thrown a star, rewritten the wind's name. But something, someone, stopped him. Not a voice, just a feeling. Let it be. So he did. The cyclone howled off into the desert. The golden city trembled, and Happy opened his eyes. He was back in Citra, still shirtless, still filthy, the hoe broken beside him, the Florida sun still blazing. The garden was quiet. Then he heard her laugh. Sarah, dripping wet from another shower, wrapped in a towel like a temptress turned houseguest, peeked her head around the corner. "You done fighting god-beasts, sunshine?" she called. Happy looked down at his hands, still shaking, still stained with soil and dream blood. "I think I forgot to water the damn sprouts," he muttered. She grinned and winked. "You're cute when you're existential." He gave her a look, somewhere between wonder and wariness, and then he laughed, because of course it was her. Of course she'd been the reason. Again. Conflict leads to resolution. The sun was punishing, not out of malice. Florida just didn't know how to love gently. Happy was shirtless, shoulders burnt a deeper bronze than any white boy should wear, slamming his hoe into the stubborn clay like it owed him money. A row of sunflower sprouts drooped beside him like depressed cheerleaders. The ground steamed, his thoughts boiled. Sarah was watching him. Again. She always watched, not like a lover or a creeper, like a cat deciding whether or not to pounce or knock the glass off the counter just because. She stood there in one of those scrap fabric goddess dresses hippie chicks wear when they want to be ethereal but confrontational. Her bare feet dusted with red clay, black hair in a braid that looked more like a whip than a fashion statement. "You've been hoeing the same row for 10 minutes, she said. "Better than hoeing for attention," he muttered. She ignored that. Like always. Stepped closer. "This farm thing? It's getting old. You're like a demigod with a shovel fetish." "I like dirt," he said, gripping the hoe like a crutch. "It stays where I put it. Unlike some people." She rolled her eyes. "I'm serious. You're hiding here, playing gardener in the ass crack of Florida. You used to split dimensions. You rode lightning, happy. Don't call me that. You used to like it." "I used to like a lot of things," he grunted. She crossed her arms. "Fine. I was going to wait till you stopped sulking, but I've got someone coming down from Asheville next week." His hoe stopped mid-swing. "He's, into art and tantric polarity work. You'd like him." Happy turned, eyes narrowing. Sarah smirked, hook set. "You bringing a boyfriend to my land?" "Your land, please. You bought this place with money from selling weed to that commune in Mechanipe." "It's not about the land." "Then what's it about?" she pushed, stepping into his shadow. Because if it's not me, and it's not your calling, and it's not the world ending, again, then what the fuck is it? He didn't answer. She saw it then. The flicker in his jaw, the tightness in his grip. Not rage, not lust, worse, guilt. You think I'm here just to bang you and ruin your reincarnation? She snapped. You think this is some cosmic honeypot operation? He finally looked at her. You want honesty? No, I want a smoothie, she snapped. Yes, asshole, I want honesty. You scare the shit out of me, he said, quiet. Because I love you. And every time I do, the universe burns. She blinked. For a second, just a second, it wasn't a battle. It was two broken gods in the skin of Florida trash, trying not to cry in a garden. And in that impossible stillness, something shifted. Their bodies glowed faintly at the edges, where his rage met her fire, where her chaos met his focus. A soft, golden pulse rippled outward, too subtle for light, but too heavy to ignore. Every sunflower in the yard tilted gently toward them, not blown by wind, but drawn by reverence. The cicadas stopped. The air thickened, like the earth itself had leaned in to listen. Power hummed at the edges of the world. Then she ruined it. As always. Well, she said, too casually, you might want to get over that, because you've got a job to do. What job? She laughed, but it was the wrong laugh, the one that sounded like the wind at the edge of a battlefield. You really don't know, do you? He stared. You thought this was punishment? She whispered, stepping closer. You thought they grounded you for fun? Jesus is dead, Satya. Somebody has to bring in the new world. He dropped the hoe. She kept going. They won't do it. The new gods don't want humanity to wake up. They want everyone plugged into some sterile digital piety cult where nobody fucks, nobody fights, and nobody questions the algorithm. That's why they hate you. Because you're the chaos they can't calculate. Happy staggered back like she'd slapped him. Why me? Because you're the only one who can love this world and still gut it if it goes too far, she said. Because you're the only God who ever felt guilt. Silence. Then she added offhandedly, also, why do you think you live in Florida? Their influence here is minimal. Happy blinked. What? She gestured around them. You think it's a coincidence this state has gator cults, meth sorcerers, swamp witches, cryptid militia, and no zoning? And no zoning laws? This is a buffer zone, the last free realm. Even the new gods don't fuck with the gunshine state. He sat down on a bale of straw, staring at nothing. She walked off toward the shower, calling over her shoulder. Oh, and tell Asheville boy he can crash in the van if he wants. I'm not letting him in the house until I sniff his aura. He growled. Just a little. She smiled. Because even when they were at war, it was better than being ignored. And maybe, just maybe, he was waking up. The cabin smelled like rain, burnt sage, and too many lives. Sarah had gotten to it. Not just cleaned, transmuted. Tapestries stitched with mandalas and peacocks fluttered at the corners like prayer flags. Pages from Be Here Now, torn with love or lunacy, were plastered to the walls like esoteric wallpaper. Sketches of Shiva, handwritten marginalia, psychedelic koans, and cosmic jokes looping in Sharpie. Happy sat cross-legged at the low wooden table she dragged in last week from someone's garage sale. Maybe a church. It looked haunted. Fit the place. She placed a chipped ceramic bowl in front of him. Lentil stew. Fried eggplant. Some pink flour floating in the chai like a joke only she understood. He stared at the food like it might talk. Outside, thunder grumbled like an ancient animal. A wall of gray moved through the trees, slow and mean. Florida summer storm, full apocalypse by 2:30. Sarah sat beside him, one leg folded under, the other swinging idly like she was 7 years old and not secretly a war goddess. Lightning streaked the sky. The wind hit like a curse. She smiled at the chaos. Finally, a little mood lighting. Then she pulled out the Bluetooth speaker, one of those cracked waterproof cubes from a gas station, and queued up a playlist that sounded like Kawali met reggae in an opium tent and decided to raise a child together in Goa. Drums, harmoniums, bass lines that begged for sin. She leaned against his shoulder, humming. Her hair smelled like hibiscus and violence. Her fingers found his wrist. She always touched him like she was trying to remember something, maybe his pulse, maybe her own. The shack shook. Rain lashed the tin roof like angry ancestors. The incense curled and died. He turned to her, eyes slow, tired, hungry. And then he kissed her. Not with hesitation, not like a man stealing joy, but with the kind of focused surrender that burns down cities. Her lips met his with fire. Years, centuries, all the fights, all the funerals, all the times they almost made it. She made a small sound deep in her throat, half laugh, half sigh. Outside, the wind screamed like a banshee. They stayed like that for a long second. Just two broken gods on a mattress in a shack wallpapered in psychedelic scripture, letting the storm bless their sins. Crack. The lightning didn't knock. It shattered through the front door like an angry sermon, white-hot and laughing, cutting the air in half with a thunderclap that shook the bones of the house, and Happy's heart right along with it. He broke the kiss on instinct, throwing an arm around Sarah and spinning to shield her. But the bolt didn't strike them. It danced. The lightning, a coiling, serpentine whip of light, circled them. Not fast, not wild, deliberate. It traced a wide arc around their bodies like a ritual procession, like reverence. Then, with a shriek and a flash, it shot back out through the opposite window, not breaking the glass, but passing clean through it like moonlight through water. Silence fell. Even the speaker gave a brief, respectful pause before bass wobbled back to life. They stood in the charged stillness, smoke curling up from the floorboards, the scent of ozone thick as myrrh. Sarah blinked. Did that bolt just bow? Happy, dazed and half laughing, nodded. Yeah, it did. He looked down at her. Guess the storm ships us. Meanwhile, far away from Citra, buried in the bones of a mountain wrapped in clouds and surveillance, a control room flickered with sterile blue light. One of the new god's terrestrial nodes, a repurposed think tank, half spiritual, half corporate. An old Baptist megachurch now rewired for astral reconnaissance and digital virtue projection. The alert klaxon sounded like wind chimes. Tasteful, enlightened, obnoxious. A man in a high-collared hemp suit with chakra tattoos blinked at the screen. His third eye implant pulsed red. Shit. On the monitor, an aerial heat map showed a sudden surge of Class 9 archetypal feedback, right over some place called Happy's Microgreens and Sprouts, LLC. He picked up the crystal comm and pressed a sigil. It rang 3 times. Yeah, he said when the other end clicked. It's him. The butcher's glowing again. Pause. No, not Jesus. He's still offline. I mean the other one. Another pause. No, I don't know what triggered it. Something about a girl. It always is. He glanced at the screen again as the trace flared and vanished. Orders? The voice on the other end purred something cold. He nodded grimly. Understood. Sending the Parody twins click. He sat back and sighed. Gods damn it, he muttered. Why couldn't he have just opened a yoga studio like the rest of us? The Parody twins come. Calling it started, like most bad things in Florida, with mosquitoes and a full moon. Happy was on the porch, shirtless and barefoot, drinking lukewarm coffee from a chipped mug that said, "Number 1 Guru," not actually a guru. The night was thick, too thick, not just with heat, with something under the heat, like the silence before a violin string snaps. He didn't see the figures at first, just felt it, that shift, like the land itself was holding its breath. Sarah was inside, humming tunelessly, flipping through a stack of books she had no intention of reading. She was wearing one of his button-downs, unbuttoned, and a pair of shorts that barely qualified as legal in 3 states. When he stiffened, she felt it from across the house. "What?" she called. "More Jehovah's Witnesses?" "Worse," he muttered. They stepped out of the dark like they'd been painted onto it. Twins, identical, pale, sexless, tall as bad omens, perfect white suits that shimmered faintly, like LED-lit yoga pants, and faces that looked sculpted by someone who had heard of human emotion but never actually seen it in action. Their eyes didn't blink. Their smiles were smooth and damp, like a hotel towel left too long in a sealed bag. "Hello, Satyadharma," they said together, in a voice that didn't echo but flattened the air. Happy set the mug down slowly. "That name's retired, partner. Your vibrational identity is still registered under the archive of astral enforcement. We've come to assist you in harmonizing with the new dawn paradigm." Sarah stepped onto the porch, arms crossed. Oh, gods. These assholes. "Sarah," the twins said, like a purr, "you're still broadcasting frequencies of rupture. Would you like a recalibration chant?" "You try chanting at me," she said sweetly, "and I'll recalibrate your teeth into the dirt." They didn't flinch. "Aggression is a trauma reflex. We honor your pain." She turned to Happy. "See? They always say that right before trying to put you in a soul cage shaped like a TED Talk." Happy's jaw clenched. "You're not welcome here. Non-consensual boundaries are a projection of disowned patriarchal energy. We're simply here to facilitate your next evolution. Jesus is deprecated. You've been designated the new integration avatar." Sarah blinked. "Wait, did they just say deprecated? Like he's an app?" "You are," the twins continued, "the bridge between algorithmic dharma and post-carbon transcendence. Once you shed your last attachments, your old pain, your divine masculinity, your outdated individuality, you'll be perfect." "I'm gonna be sick," Sarah said. "They sound like a yoga cult that mated with LinkedIn." The twins turned to her in unison. "Your frequency is contaminated with weaponized femininity. You're holding him back. His incarnation is a sacred, neutral field. You represent disruption." Sarah's smile went wide and dangerous. "Oh," she said, "so that's what we're doing." She stepped off the porch. The wind stopped. The crickets shut up. Even the goats in the distance got real quiet. "I knew I'd need this," she muttered, ducking around the side of the shack. A second later, she came back holding one of the swords from the shed. Not the glowing one, not the vibrating one. Just a mean old bastard of a blade with rust and attitude. She walked up to the twins, barefoot in the grass, hair wild. The first one blinked. Once. "Violence is a betrayal of sacred unity." "Sweetheart," she said, raising the sword, "I'm the goddess of betrayal." And she cut him in half, clean, like slicing tofu. He didn't bleed. He just fell apart, like a projection dropped from bad Wi-Fi. His body flickered, collapsed into ash. The other one gasped. You've severed the harmonic loop. You're creating dissonance." Then his hand flew to his chest, eyes wide, a wheeze. Then he fell, face first, dead. Happy stared. Did that one just die of a heart attack? Sarah looked down at him. "I've never seen a robot die of fear." "That's new." He kept staring. She kicked a piece of ashen suit with her bare foot. "Gods, that felt good. You just killed an envoy of the New Order. They were about to workshop your soul into an NFT." Happy looked at her, looked at the grass where 2 divine agents had just died, like glitchy interns at a startup cult. Then he looked up at the stars, took a deep breath, and said, "I need a drink." Sarah grinned, sword still in hand. "We've got tequila in the Trident case." He nodded slowly. "That'll do." And the night pressed back in. The sounds returned. But something had shifted. The new gods would come harder now. But so would they. The tequila burned like a bad mantra, but Happy drank it anyway, leaning against the porch railing. The night was loud again. Crickets screaming, frogs belching, the distant yowl of a peacock that sounded like it was auditioning for a horror flick. Sarah sat cross-legged on the warped boards, sword balanced across her knees, cleaning it with a rag that used to be Happy's favorite bandana. "You think they'll send more?" he asked, voice low, eyes on the dark where the twins had stood. Sarah didn't look up. "Oh, they'll send more. The new gods don't take kindly to their PowerPoint presenters getting turned into compost." He snorted, but it wasn't funny. Not really. The air still smelled like ozone and ash, and the ground where the twins fell was scorched in a perfect circle, like the earth itself had decided to take notes. He could feel it, a hum in his bones, the kind that came when the Masters or someone worse was watching. "Deprecated," he muttered, rolling the word around like a sour candy. "They called me an app." Sarah smirked, wiping a smudge off the blade. "They called you the app, Satya. Big difference. They think you're the key to their shiny new world order. Too bad you're more like a virus." He shot her a look. "And you're what? My antivirus? Or the one who infected me in the first place?" She laughed, sharp and bright, like broken glass catching moonlight. "Baby, I'm the whole damn operating system." He wanted to argue, wanted to push back, tell her to stop screwing with his head, his heart, his exile. But the way she held that sword, casual, like it was an extension of her soul, made him pause. She wasn't just a chaos goddess, she was his chaos goddess, and that scared him more than any new god's hit squad. The stars flickered, just for a second. Not a cloud, not a plane, something else. Something that didn't belong in Florida's sky. "You feel that?" he asked, setting the tequila bottle down. Sarah's eyes narrowed, scanning the dark. "Yeah, they're not done with us." A low hum started, not from the ground, but from the air itself, like a drone warming up for a strafing run. The sunflowers in the yard tilted, not toward the moon, but away from it, their leaves curling like they were praying. The goats bleated once and bolted for the shed. Happy stood, fists clenching. "What now?" Sarah rose, sword in one hand, the other brushing his arm as she stepped past. "Now? We get ready to dance." From the tree line, a light pulsed, cold, blue, wrong. Not the twins' LED glow, but something sharper, like a server farm had learned to hate. Shapes moved in the dark, too smooth, too synchronized. Not human, not God. Something in between. "Round 2, Sarah whispered, her voice all honey and venom. "Let's make it quick. I've got a shower to finish." Happy cracked his knuckles, feeling the old divine spark flicker in his chest. Yeah, let's... The drones came in slow, too slow. They didn't buzz like normal ones. These moved in near silence, sleek, matte black, shaped like shark teeth and altar blades. 6 of them. No sound but the electric hum of dimensional displacement, the faint whine of synthetic virtue. New model, Sarah muttered, cloaked in intention. Wrapped in good vibes, fucking insidious. Happy squinted. That's not standard drone tech. They're not drones, she said. They're emissaries. Death sermons with propellers. One hovered above the porch. A soft click echoed through the yard. Then came the voice. Warm, genderless, calming. The kind of voice that would offer you a compostable straw while it read your aura and deleted your browser history. Satya Dharma. Your resistance is unaligned with planetary healing. Submit to recalibration. Your partner's polarity interference has been noted and flagged for spiritual correction. Sarah hissed through her teeth. They're going to try and exorcise me. You want to run? He asked, already knowing the answer. She grinned. I always want to run, but I never do. Then, the first drone fired. It wasn't a bullet. It was worse. A virtue pulse. Concentrated shame, self-doubt, ancestral trauma made into raw kinetic force. It hit the porch and detonated into a sound like a TED Talk having a nervous breakdown. Wood splintered. Happy shielded his face. Sarah went airborne, thrown clear across the yard. She hit the dirt with a grunt, rolled once, twice, didn't get up. Sarah! He jumped the porch railing in one smooth motion and ran, barefoot and furious, toward her crumpled form. She was still breathing, but barely. Her fingers twitched. One eye fluttered open, blood on her lip. Don't, she whispered, voice thick. They'll lock you back in the cage. They'll take your wings. Too late. Happy had already stopped feeling human. The moment he touched her, something ancient snapped loose inside his chest, like a drum skin that had been stretched too tight for too long. The old spark ignited. Not the fire of anger, not the heat of wrath. This was Shakti. His divine consort's essence flowed into him like lightning choosing a favorite tree. His arms lit first, veins glowing gold, tattoos burning hot. Then his spine cracked with a noise like thunder. Learning a new language. His eyes rolled back, and when they came forward again, they weren't eyes. They were stars. Wings burst from his back, etheric, shimmering, wide enough to blot out the moon. Not feathered, not angelic. These were energies sculpted by will, memories forged into weapons. They pulsed with the rhythm of Vedic hymns sung in reverse and roared like a conch at the end of time. The drones hesitated. Fatal mistake. Happy rose into the air, 10 feet, 20, 30. The ground shook from the force of his ascent. His voice, when it came, wasn't his voice. It was his true name, vibrating through flesh and memory. He raised one hand, and the sacred trident materialized, composed of light, fire, and 3 really bad past lives. And then he dove. The first drone didn't even get to fire again. The trident sliced it in half midair. It exploded into ethical scrap metal. The second drone tried to deploy a compassion net. Happy caught it with his bare hand and turned it into confetti. The third fled. The fourth begged. The fifth tried to activate fail-safe humility mode. The sixth exploded on its own in a burst of synthetic guilt. Below, Sarah watched through half-lidded eyes, a bloody grin spreading across her face. "That's my boy," she rasped. Happy hovered in the moonlight, haloed in gold and rage. wings wide, breath slow. He looked down at the smoldering wreckage, then at Sarah. And then he landed. Hard, knees in the dirt, held her like she was the last psalm in a ruined temple. "Don't ever scare me like that again," he whispered. "I scare everyone," she mumbled, blinking up at him. "It's my thing." Then she passed out. He sat there for a long time, wings slowly fading, the wind returning, the stars twinkling like they'd just seen something they weren't supposed to. And in a think tank buried under Nevada, a server crashed, hard. The Parity twins were gone. The drones were scrap. And somewhere, in the bloodless digital cathedral of the new gods, an alarm began to wail in a tone they hadn't programmed for. Fear. The yard was a battlefield graveyard, scorched earth, drone shards glinting like fallen stars, sunflowers sagging like mourners at a funeral for sanity. The air hung heavy, laced with the aftertaste of virtue pulses and divine rage. But the night had gone still, as if Florida itself was catching its breath. Happy knelt in the dirt, Sarah cradled in his arms, her pulse stubborn beneath the blood and bruises, daring death to try again. He carried her into the shack, the door creaking like it resented the intrusion. Inside, the air was thick with rain, burnt sage, and the copper tang of her blood. He laid her on the patchwork quilt, its stains a map of their unspoken wars. Her skin was torn where the virtue pulse had thrown her, his borrowed flannel shirt ripped, revealing the curve of her ribs, bruised but unbroken. "You look like hell," he said, voice low, almost a growl, as he brushed a damp strand of hair from her face. His fingers lingered, trembling, as if touching her might unravel him. She smirked, wincing, blood flecking her lip. "Says the guy who looks like he wrestled a thunderstorm and lost." He didn't smile. His hands moved with a precision older than memory, pulling a clay bowl from the shelf, filling it with rainwater from a chipped jug. He tossed in turmeric, crushed hibiscus, and a pinch of ash from a pouch hidden in the guitar case. Sacred, stolen from a yajna fire in a realm where gods wept embers. The air shivered as he worked, like it knew what was coming. "Hold still," he said, dipping his fingers into the ash. "This'll sting." Sarah's eyes glinted, ember bright. "Sting's my love language, Satya." He chanted, low and raw, in a tongue that tasted of smoke and starlight, older than Sanskrit, older than time's first lie. His fingers traced glyphs over her wounds, spirals of light that sank into her skin, knitting cuts, fading bruises. The ash glowed, gold and pulsing, as if the shack itself was breathing with them. Each glyph was a vow, a memory of battles fought together, of silken bedsheets and burning cities. Her hand caught his wrist, not to stop him but to anchor herself, her touch electric, like a circuit closing between them. The air thickened, heavy with their mingled energies, his gold, her ember, twining like lovers who'd forgotten how to fight. The shack's walls creaked, and outside, a line of ants marched across the scorched earth, undeterred, forming a spiral that mirrored the glyphs on her skin. The sunflowers, bent and battered, began to straighten, petal by petal, as if remembering why they'd bloomed in the first place. "You didn't have to," she whispered, her voice softer now, raw. "I'd have healed." Eventually, his fingers paused on her collarbone, the glyph there pulsing hotter, brighter. "I don't do eventually with you," he said, his voice catching, betraying the god beneath the man. Their eyes locked, and for a moment it wasn't just Happy and Sarah. It was Satyadharma and his consort, Shakti and Chaos, Two halves of a cosmic fire that could burn worlds or rebuild them. The tension between them crackled, not explosive, but restorative, like a forest regrowing after a blaze. She leaned into his touch, her breath warm against his knuckles. "You're too good at this. Makes me think you still love me." He didn't answer, just finished the last glyph, the glow fading into her skin. The shack hummed, the air shimmering like a mirage, as if the land itself was exhaling in relief. They sat in silence, her on the mattress, him on the floor, their energies still tangled, pulling at each other like tides. Morning crawled in, sluggish and golden, the Florida sun spilling through the pines like it was apologizing for last night. A peacock screeched, shrill and judgmental, while the goats bleated gossip from the shed. Happy sat on the porch steps, barefoot in a faded tank top, a jumbo mug of coffee steaming in his hands, black, bitter, brewed in a pot that smelled like it had survived the Reagan era. Sarah emerged, hair loose, a wild cascade of ink, wearing his flannel shirt, buttoned now but clinging to her curves like it knew her better than he did. She didn't speak, just climbed onto his lap, straddling him, her arms wrapping around his neck in a hug that felt like a hymn. Her skin was warm, her breath against his ear. A quiet defiance, and the weight of her grounded him, tethering the god to the man. They stayed like that, her body pressed to his hands tracing the curve of her spine, slow and deliberate, like he was mapping a constellation. The coffee mug sat between them, oversized and chipped, its heat rising in lazy curls. She took it first, sipping deeply, then passed it to him, and their fingers brushing, sparking a low hum that wasn't just heat, but them. Their energies weaving, gold and ember, a slow burn that could heal or destroy. "Last night was fucked," she said, her voice raw, human, stripped of goddess bravado. "Those drones, I thought I was gone, Satya." "For real?" He sipped the coffee, its bitterness grounding him. "You scared me," he admitted, quieter than he meant. "Thought I'd lost you." Again, she pulled back, just enough to meet his eyes, her gaze fierce but soft, like a blade wrapped in silk. "You don't lose me." "Not ever, not even when you're dumb enough to try." His laugh was low, heavy with lifetimes. "I keep trying to push you away. Never works." "Good," she said, her forehead resting against his, her breath warm, close. "I'd hate to make it easy." The air around them shimmered, a faint gold haze as their energies pulsed together. Not a firestorm, but a quiet restoration, like rain on cracked earth. The sunflowers stood taller now, their faces turned toward the shack. Not the sun, as if drawn to the spark of their union. Ants spiraled in the dirt, a living mandala, and the ground hummed faintly, like Florida itself was singing their names. "You think they're coming back?" he asked, his thumb brushing her wrist, her pulse steady, defiant. "Oh, they'll come," she said, taking the mug for another sip. "New gods don't like losing, but we're the glitch they can't fix." He grinned, that crescent moon smile that could scare gods or charm mortals. "You're gonna get us killed one day." She kissed his jaw, slow, lingering, her lips a spark against his skin. "Maybe. But we'll burn bright going down." They passed the mug back and forth, coffee sloshing, their glows mingling in the morning light. The yard was still a wreck, drone bits, scorched earth, but it didn't matter. Not now. Their union was a quiet rebellion, a cosmic reawakening that made the land itself stand taller. The new gods were out there, in some Nevada bunker, screens cracked, alarms wailing fear they hadn't coded for. They'd regroup, send something worse. But for now, Happy and Sarah were alive, tangled, glowing, and Florida held its breath, waiting for the next spark. Thunder in the garden. The storm had passed, but the air still held its charge, like the world was holding its breath. Satya was hoeing rows in silence. The soil was wet, dark, forgiving. Sarah had gone into town for incense and cider. He hadn't asked her to. She just needed a break. From him, maybe. From the gods' damn everything. He stabbed at the earth harder than necessary, every motion a wordless shout. The drone attack, the fallout, the shack still smelling like smoke and blood and ash. Every time he let his guard down, every time he softened, the universe threw another punch. He wasn't made for softness. He wasn't made for anything anymore. The wind shifted. The birds stopped. The sun glinted off something in the air. And then he felt it, a ripple in the sky, like the cloud line had hiccuped. The garden shivered. And then he smelled it. Jasmine, gold, and ganja. The unmistakable, overwhelming scent of swarga. Still brooding like a bad poet in a field of kale,